You know, there's a kind of darkness that's deeper than just night. I'm talking about those hours between, say, 2 and 6 in the morning. That deep, cold, silent time right before the sun even thinks about rising.
Hmm. It's that time when focus is the hardest, when your body just wants to quit. Traditionally, that was known as the watch. It's the period that requires the most painful kind of vigilance.
I know that feeling so well. 27 years ago, I was standing guard in Namhae, South Korea, right on the coast. It was so dark you could hear the waves crashing, but you literally couldn't tell where the ground ended and the sea began.
Wow.
Yeah, you're just sort of suspended in nothing. And the only thing that got me through was humming the song, an old Korean gospel tune from Psalm 121. The Lord watches over you. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night.
That image is.
Yeah.
It's perfect. The watchman, standing guard in that profound darkness, waiting for something to be revealed. That is the exact mental framework we need for the book of Habakkuk. The prophet Habakkuk literally places himself on the city walls. He sees himself as that guard, posted and waiting for God's justice in a world that feels totally swallowed by shadow.
And what a time to be on watch. I mean, he was living in Judah during one of the most volatile geopolitical periods imaginable. You have the massive Assyrian Empire just collapsing.
Nineveh has fallen.
Exactly. And right on its heels, you have the terrifying, unstoppable rise of the Babylonian Empire. This is all happening right before that devastating invasion of Judah in 588 BC.
He's watching a global power shift from his own doorstep.
Oh.
But what's so unique about his book is the structure. It's not the usual prophecy, long monologue of doom and gloom.
No.
Instead, it's a dialogue. It's like a holy Q&A session. It's 2 complaints from Habakkuk and 2 really profound responses from God.
And that dialogue, that wrestling match, is our mission for this deep dive. We're observing it. We often talk about Jonah, who was angry because God showed too much grace. Habakkuk is almost the opposite. He's troubled by God's absence. The absence of 2 things: answers and justice. And we're going to unpack what it means to wait for both.
So let's jump right into that first complaint, what the text calls the burden. It's the problem of God's silence.
Habakkuk just opens with this raw, agonizing question. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen?
Or cry out to you violence.
Yeah. He's describing a society that's just poisoned from the inside with injustice and corruption, and the leaders are tolerating it. God's law has been made powerless.
And you can tell this isn't a casual one-off prayer. The sources really stress that the phrase, how long, suggests he's been wrestling with this for a sustained period. He's been pouring his heart out over and over again.
And feeling completely ignored.
Exactly. The feeling of being ignored in a crisis.
And that just resonates so strongly today. The source material draws a really crucial line for us here. In times like ours, with so much polarization and crisis, we have plenty of critics, commentators, and activists.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're necessary, of course. But what the text models, what we seem to desperately need, are prayer warriors, watchmen and watchwomen.
Yes. Intercessors. People who don't just critique the injustice from a distance, but who actually pour out their hearts and stay awake to God's vision. That requires a different kind of stamina.
It sounds exhausting, to be honest. In an age where everything has to be loud and visible, on social media, is just praying enough? Does the source material call for action too?
It suggests that faithful intercession is a foundational action. Look at the historical figures. Samuel said that ceasing to pray for his people was a sin.
Wow.
That's how vital he saw that role. Or Nehemiah, the ultimate project manager. He didn't just start rebuilding Jerusalem's walls. He first spent days fasting, weeping, and praying. He acted only after he had watched and wept.
And you see that same pattern with Jesus weeping over Jerusalem. It's this heartbreak, this holding the gap between God and the suffering people.
And that tradition of the watchman is very much alive today. The sources pointed to 2 modern movements that are rooted in this exact idea. It's worth spending a moment here.
For sure. Let's start with the 24/7 prayer movement. I find this story incredible. It started in the UK back in 1999.
Right, with a group of students.
Yeah, not some big global initiative, just a student vigil. They were concerned about spiritual apathy and the social injustice they were seeing.
It literally started in a boiler room. They set up a continuous prayer room, a watchtower, where people would sign up for 1 or 2 hour slots. And that idea has now spread to almost every continent. The prayer never stops.
The watch is always maintained.
Exactly.
And then there's Moms in Prayer International. This is a massive global movement in over 160 countries. They gather in small groups every week to pray for their kids, their teachers, and their schools.
And their mission is pure Habakkuk. They're praying against internal injustice, bullying, anxiety, violence, things affecting their kids. Their vision is every school in the world covered in prayer.
That is ministry in the gap, staying on watch even when the answer feels delayed. And that brings us right to the hardest part of the book, to Habakkuk's second, deeper question. Where is God's justice?
So he's complained about the corruption inside Judah. He's looking around, seeing injustice, and God seems completely inactive. He's begging for action.
And this is where the conversation gets really dark and challenging, because God's response to this plea for justice, it's not comforting at all. God basically says, oh, I am acting, Habakkuk. I am raising up the Babylonians.
Precisely, the Chaldeans. And Habakkuk immediately points out that they are even more wicked, more violent, more ruthlessly destructive than the corrupt leaders already in Judah.
So his reaction, which is our immediate reaction, is, wait a minute, how can punishing an unjust people with an even more unjust people be justice? That just makes things worse.
It creates a massive moral and theological dilemma. And Habakkuk cries out in despair using this powerful Hebrew word, Hamas.
And we have to pause here, because that word Hamas is obviously crucial for a modern audience to understand correctly.
Yes, very important.
We have to clarify that while it sounds exactly like the name of the modern militant group, that group's name is an Arabic acronym. There is absolutely no historical or linguistic connection to the biblical text.
Right, but the theological meaning of Hamas in the Bible is incredibly relevant here. It means more than just a single act of physical harm. It's the unjust, systematic use of power.
Through actions, systems, even words.
That degrades or destroys the image of God in people. It violates God's intention of shalom, of peace.
So Habakkuk sees this systemic destruction everywhere, and he just pleads, Lord, why do you make me look at this? Why do you tolerate people who are even worse than we are?
And that honest guttural wrestling is the moment he becomes a true watchman. He stays on the wall, ready to receive the answer no matter how difficult it is.
Which leads us to the turning point, the anchor of the entire book. It's in chapter 2, verse 4. God's ultimate response is so simple, but it's revolutionary.
Look at the proud. They trust in themselves and their lives are crooked. But the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God.
The contrast is everything. God is saying, the proud, the oppressive powers like Babylon, anyone who trusts in their own strength, they're headed for self-destruction. Pride eats itself.
But those who steadfastly trust God, who live by their faithfulness, they will truly live.
And the historical significance of that one sentence is just astronomical. I mean, the sources point out this became the foundation for the Apostle Paul's entire teaching on justification by faith.
That's right. The phrase, by their faithfulness, gets translated in later texts as by faith. It's the core of Paul's theology. And centuries later, Martin Luther is struggling with this very idea.
And he reads Habakkuk 2.4.
And finds the courage he needs to begin the Reformation. It's the inspiration for sola fide, by faith alone.
The power in this small book is just immense. It forces you to live in that tension, doesn't it? Between God's promised justice and the violent reality you see right now.
It does. And to help with that, the sources share this incredible ancient Jewish teaching, a midrash, about creation itself.
Oh, right. The Midrash says God first tried to create the world built only on pure justice. Every action got an immediate full consequence. But that world shattered. It couldn't handle the weight.
So the story goes, God tried again, this time with a world of boundless mercy. Everything forgiven, no consequences. And that world fell apart too because nothing mattered.
Right.
So God chose a third way, a world held together by both justice and mercy, truth and grace. And while we say delayed justice is injustice, the faithful recognize that the delay is often that mysterious space where both are at work.
So faithful people keep praying, keep doing good. Instead of seeking revenge or just falling into despair, it's the faithfulness of the watchman that matters, not the speed of the dawn.
Exactly. And that realization changes everything for Habakkuk. Which brings us to the end of the book, the Song in the Dark.
Such a unique ending. It's not a song of thanksgiving after the rescue. He's singing before anything has changed.
Yes, he hasn't seen Babylon fall. He hasn't seen Judah restored. He's singing while the darkness is still thick.
And the lyrics, I mean, they describe total catastrophe. He says he'll rejoice even though the fig tree doesn't bud, there are no grapes, the olive crop fails, the fields are empty.
No sheep in the pen, no cattle in the stalls. It's a description of total economic and environmental collapse.
And yet
Yet I will rejoice in the Lord, I will be joyful in God my Savior. His joy isn't in his circumstances or even the promise of future provision. It's in God himself, right now, in the middle of the absence.
That is the definition of faithfulness. And it's such an encouragement for you listening right now. Don't let your circumstances, financial failure, injustice, even the failures of leaders around you, don't let that shake your faithfulness. Your journey is bigger than any person.
And that brings us right back to the Watchmen analogy, like that guard on the dark shoreline. The faithful don't abandon their post because dawn is delayed. They keep watching, waiting, and doing good, trusting that morning will come.
The core takeaway from all this really is that singular mandate. The righteous will live by their faithfulness to the Lord.
Indeed. And we need to remember, the world desperately needs that kind of faithful intercession, more than it needs easy judgment. Habakkuk showed us, the path is to pour out your heart with compassion, even when you can't see the answers.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The faithful don't wait for the answer to start acting. They act faithfully while they wait. So what act of faithful waiting or compassionate praying will you commit to today? Where will you choose to stand watch, trusting that God is at work, even when you can't tell where the ground ends and the sea begins?